Hello and welcome to Miss Hannah Loves Grammar. In this video we'll be sharing some quickfire notes and quotes on Victor Frankenstein, the Victor Frankenstein of Mary Shelley's Gothic literature classic, Frankenstein. So, we learn that Victor is a curious scientist who attends Ingolstadt University. He grew up in Geneva to a loving family. His fascination with life leads him to do some quite obscure things, including digging up dead bodies. He creates a new life from dead body parts, the character named the monster. Victor rejects his creation and is even made ill because of it. The monster makes Victor's life horrific, in turn killing his brother, the family's servant, his best friend Henry Clerval, and his wife in turn Elizabeth. By Volume 3, Victor's sole desire is to kill the monster, as he sees this as the right revenge for the horrific murders of so many that he loved. Victor seeks the monster all the way to the North Pole. He is weak by this point and is found alone by Captain Walton and his crew on their ship as they're stranded in the ice. Victor narrates the story of his life to Captain Walton, who is a firm friend of his actually by the end of this novel, and he shortly dies of exhaustion. Victor dies alone and unfulfilled. So we have to question the character that is Victor Frankenstein and the journey that we go on as we explore his character within this novel. As with every quotation that we encounter, I want you to hit pause and answer the 4 questions that I've listed here. Who said this quote? Where in the text does it come from? What devices are used and how do they impact us as a reader? And why might Shelley present our character Victor in this way? Hit pause if you need thinking time. So it's no surprise to realise that Victor is the person who says this quotation. And he says it in chapter 4. The quotation itself reads, "And the same feelings caused me also to forget those friends who were so many miles absent. I knew my silence disquieted them." The overwhelming initial device that we can't ignore is that of the use of first personal and possessive pronouns used to highlight how self-centered Frankenstein seems to be in his own narration. The other pertinent device is that of the verb disquieted, which shows how alarming the impact of the silence that Victor creates between those and his loved ones really is. It's important also to note the intentional semantic field of isolation through words such as silence, absent, and forget those friends. More than anything, we realise that Shelley is illustrating that Frankenstein is blindly obsessed with his pursuit of knowledge. He is prepared to neglect and ignore his family and friends for what he believes is a great discovery. And he knows he'll upset them along the way, but he does so anyway. This is a great indication of the character of the man we're dealing with. He revels in this because it gives him an opportunity to succeed in his own ambition. But what does it say about his moral character? So next up, "A new species would bless me as its creator and source. Many happy and excellent natures would owe their being to me." Answer the 4 questions before you find out what my general thoughts are on this key piece of evidence. Hit pause if you need thinking time. So, it's obvious that Victor says this quotation. He also says this in chapter 4 of the novel. He's waxing lyrical about how much power he believes he'll have. The effect for us as readers stems from the semantic field of life and creation that's exuded from this quote. The use of jargon such as species, creator and source is scientific, and it shows how self-indulgent Victor is within the realms of his own ideas of how science is operating here. Another device that we can't help but notice is something that's very characteristic of Victor, the reference of me that's repeated. It's once more showing the connotations of playing God, and the power is shown once more through the noun creator. He sees himself as powerful. And he also has rather warped ideas about what a creation would feel towards him. He believes they would owe their being to him, heightening his interest in being powerful with these species. So why would Shelley include this? Perhaps to signal that Victor is, in a way, viewing himself as God. Perhaps also to set back the very nature of Frankenstein as someone who needs to suffer hubris for overreaching himself. His ambition seems blind and he's not worked through the consequences, as we see here, with quite a blissful vision of what will happen. This next key quotation reads, "How can I describe my emotions at this catastrophe, or how delineate the wretch whom with such infinite pains and care I had endeavoured to form?" Answer the 4 questions and hit pause if you need thinking time. So, as is typical, this is Victor Frankenstein, and we can tell, this is from chapter 5, upon realising the absurd, grotesque nature of the creation he has created, that he's looking on and trying to fathom how this could possibly have happened. The semantic field of suffering, conveyed through abstract nouns, catastrophe, pains and wretch, stretch and stress, Victor's initial feelings towards the monster being of something that he's deeply ashamed and despondent about. But there's an interesting juxtaposition also. We learn that Victor's efforts and care that I had endeavoured are in great kind of juxtaposition to the disgust he feels. And equally, that first person that we know so well of him, with the possessive pronouns in the first person, really help us to unpack his experience. We fail to see within this evidence how he views how his creation will feel at being rejected like this. Shelley is accentuating Frankenstein's pure revulsion and disgust towards the monster, that's undeniable. She's juxtaposing his hatred of the monster against his description of intense care and attention that went into making this creation. It's amazing for us to see him reject what he's created, but it's also important for us to realise that he has that selfish streak that will not accept responsibility for what he has created. We have to measure the man against this sort of statement. When I reflected on his crimes and malice, my hatred and revenge burst all bounds of moderation. I'd like you to unpick all 4 of the questions and hit pause if you need thinking time. So, how did he get on? Obviously, this is Frankenstein. It's now from chapter 9 in the text. It's the aggression that we pick up from the abstract nouns of malice, hatred and revenge that demonstrate the strength of Victor's pure hatred towards his creation. It's definitely taken on a new anger and rage from when he first sees the monster and is disgusted. Once more, the use of that first personal pronoun shows how consumed Victor remains in his own thoughts, with no acknowledgement at all of how his revenge bursting all bounds is damaging also to the monster. Perhaps Shelley includes this to highlight Frankenstein's absolute hypocrisy towards the monster. He is responding to the monster's malice with hatred and revenge. Shelley is showing that Victor is not blameless, and to some extent she's also showing that neither is the monster. Finally, I am chained in an eternal hell. Hit pause if you need thinking time to answer the 4 questions below. So, we know this is Victor Frankenstein. There's a thread going here with my key quotes. But this comes from volume 3, the final chapter, chapter 24. This reference echoes Satan in the Bible, but also Milton's Paradise Lost. And it echoes the words that the monster picks up when he learns to read that text. And it's drawing a parallel between the monster and Victor once more. Perhaps Shelley uses this to suggest that Victor is paying long-term consequences for his actions. She's seeking to see Victor suffer at this late stage in the novel to emphasise the damage at playing God. But is she also suggesting that hell is something mental and emotional brought on? There's no denying that Victor Frankenstein is an emotional roller coaster of a character, but your view on him is solely dependent on whether you see him as the real monster of this novel, or to some extent, the lost, obsessed creator who didn't know the damage he'd be doing by creating a monster. Why not subscribe to Miss Hannah Loves Grammar for all things English, literary and grammatical?